Okay, welcome everybody. So welcome to the Construct Innovate webinar series on sustainability planning and construction. My name is Professor Jamie Goggins and I'm a director of Construct Innovate, which is Ireland's National Research Centre for Construction Technology and Innovation. So this week's topic is on retrofitting our buildings. We're delighted to be joined by three speakers here. Orla McGinley, who's a researcher in the University of Galway, and she's going to talk about the stages of a householder's retrofit journey. Then Caroline Ash-Brady, who's director in core installation, who's going to talk about one-stop shops for retrofitting homes and give some top tips on that. And then we have Dr. Paul Moran, who's a research fellow in Construct Innovate in the University of Galway, and he's going to talk about lessons learned from monitoring performance of homes. So these talks are part of the Construct Innovate webinar series, which we have running for the next 7 weeks, and the topics are here. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to our speakers. So Orla is going to be our first speaker. You can post your questions into the Q&A tab on Zoom, and we'll deal with the questions after all three speakers. So over to you, Orla.
Thanks, Jamie. Okay, so hi everybody. As Jamie said, today I'm just going to be talking a bit about understanding the householder's retrofit journey. So just as a bit of context, Ireland's Climate Action Plan has set retrofit targets for the retrofit of 500,000 homes to be retrofitted by 2030 to a B2 built-in energy rating or better at a rate of 50,000 retrofits per annum. So that's equivalent to retrofitting all of the occupied homes in Cork each year. So quite an ambitious target. And obviously there are barriers to doing so. However, between the years 2019 to 2020, around 18,527 B2BER retrofits have been completed using grant aid in Ireland. So as you can see here in this graph, it shows the number of grant aid applications per year, the number of retrofits that have been completed per year, and the number of retrofits that have achieved a B2 built-in energy rating or better using grant aid in Ireland. So despite there being increased grant applications over time, and there's been an increased number of retrofits completed over time, the number of retrofits achieving a B2 built-in energy rating or better are still quite low. So we still have a bit of progress to make there. So the Climate Action Plan has stated that around 75,000 dwellings would have to be retrofitted each year from 2026 to 2030 to try and make progress on the targets and achieve those targets that have been set. So there are three grant routes that people can use offered by the Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland to support retrofit uptake. So there is the free energy upgrade, and that's managed by the SEAI. And that is for homes that were built before 2006 for householders that are in receipt of welfare benefits, and it's a fully funded scheme. There is the one-stop shop service, which offers up to 50% grants for retrofits, for whole house retrofits that achieve a B2 built-in energy rating or better, and it offers a fully managed solution through the one-stop shop service. And then there is the individual energy upgrade route, and that offers up to 80% funding for measures, and it is managed by the homeowner. And so if you were to retrofit using the individual energy upgrade scheme, it might look like something like the traditional retrofit delivery model, where homeowners have to make complex decisions, manage the process themselves. They might face several contact points along a supply chain. They mightn't have proper information, and they might face complex funding structures. Comparatively, if you were to go the one-stop shop service route, many of these barriers seem to be removed. So one-stop shops are designed to offer full service retrofitting, including the initial assessment of your dwelling, proposal of retrofit solutions, fully coordinated and managed retrofit execution, and some quality assurance. And it offers a single point of contact that can guide the homeowner throughout the entire retrofit process. The further benefit, if you were to retrofit using the one-stop shop service, is that a wider range of measures are granted through the one-stop shop grant scheme, as you can see here. And there are currently 17 SAI registered one-stop shops in Ireland, and they're shown here on the screen. And we actually have Caroline from Core here today, who's going to talk more about their one-stop shop and the benefits of using their service and the retrofit process of using a one-stop shop. So the research that I have been doing at the University of Galway centres around understanding the householder's retrofit journey when using one-stop shops and other retrofit services in Ireland. You can see here that the retrofit journey is a multi-stage process that householders might embark on over an extended period of time. There are a range of drivers that encourage householders to progress through each stage of the retrofit journey. And there are also a range of barriers that they might face at any particular stage that results in householders remaining at any individual stage for a period of time, or sometimes might be so significant that they actually disengage with the retrofit journey entirely and drop off completely. So the retrofit journey consists of 5 key stages. So it begins when householders that were not considering retrofitting first consider retrofitting their home. They gain an initial awareness of retrofitting. They might evaluate their own home and circumstances and see how retrofitting might apply or might improve their home. They might have been triggered by various triggers that encourage them to consider retrofitting from the outset. They might take an initial information search on the retrofit measures, the process, the benefits, and what the costs might be. And at the end of the considering retrofit stage, they might decide to undertake an SAI home energy assessment or a built-in energy rating assessment to gain more information about their home. So some of the reasons that people might first consider retrofitting. So householders are likely to consider retrofitting as and when they feel they need it. So this need might arise from their dissatisfaction with the prior conditions of their dwellings. Maybe there's emergency repairs that are needed to some of the systems or components of the dwelling. They might feel that they need to retrofit due to various conditions of domestic life. So that might be imbalances between the home as it is and the home, how it could be better adapted to meet their needs, to meet the changing demands on their dwelling, and to maybe meet the physical ability of householders and so forth. There are various life stages and points in time at which a householder might consider retrofitting. So it could be, for example, at retirement. It could be, for example, on the purchase of an existing dwelling. Or it might be where other non-energy renovations are also taking place. They might also consider retrofitting as a result of the benefits for the indoor environment, so thermal comfort improvements, indoor air quality improvements. They might look for the health and well-being benefits of retrofitting. It could be the economic benefits, so the energy cost savings, or the property value improvements, for example. Or it could be the environmental benefits in reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. Householders might consider retrofitting because they've gained more awareness and knowledge about the situation. Householders that consider retrofitting might also be people that are more aware and knowledgeable about energy and environmental issues, or those that are more aware and knowledgeable about retrofitting and its benefits. Householders that might have learned about the presence of one-stop shop supports might see that as an attractive opportunity to consider retrofitting, or they might see the available grants as a good situation for them to consider retrofitting from the start. They might find that they have higher trust in retrofitting, in that it's a government-backed initiative, and that the SAI provides registered providers for the works. They might look to others' experiences and peer recommendations. They might look to consider retrofitting because they want to improve the aesthetics of their homes, so particularly for things like external wall insulation or window improvements, things like that. And they might look to retrofit because it's technically feasible to do so for them, or alternatively, they might not be able to retrofit because it's not technically feasible. Some barriers they might face from the outset could be the costs of the work, any competing priorities in the household at the time. And there are a range of information sources that householders can use when they're first considering retrofitting for them to gain that initial information about retrofit measures and their benefits. So it could be information events like today. They could look at designers, contractors, energy assessors. They could look for one-stop shops for information. They might contact their family, friends, neighbours, peers. They might look at various websites, and the SAA website has a lot of useful tools and information there. They might look at social media, some case studies. They might look in the wider media, TV, radio, news, or in some cases they might use their own knowledge and expertise. So as well as that, as I said, when they're first considering retrofitting, one of the things that they might do is look at home energy assessments, and really that provides them with a roadmap for the measures that they could do to their home to improve it. So the home energy assessments are for homeowners that are considering multiple energy upgrades and they're applying for the one-stop shop service. They are arranged and provided by registered one-stop shops, and they provide the BER assessment, your published BER certificate, and the dwelling report. As well as that, they also provide the technical report that details the energy upgrades that are required to achieve a B2 built-in energy rating or better, including the technical design that's required to meet the heat loss indicator requirements for heat pumps. And they also provide estimate costs for the works. And there is an available grant for that of €350. Alternatively, householders might get a BER assessment. And so for that's for homeowners that aren't really sure where they want to start, or those that might be considering going the individual upgrade route as opposed to the whole house retrofit. The difference is that it's completely organised by the homeowner, and it provides the BER certificate, which indicates your BER rating, and the advisory report, which provides recommendations for your energy saving improvements. And so estimate cost of those you could get anywhere between €150 to €300 depending on your home. So once householders have that home energy assessment or BER assessment, and they decide that they want to progress, they may progress to the planning, retrofit and decision making stage. And so it's at these stages that householders evaluate and decide on potential retrofit options based on their various advantages and disadvantages. They might evaluate and decide on potential retrofit providers. They might look at potential finance options, and then they might have to engage with some administrative tasks at these stages regarding arranging implementation, securing the grant funding, and preparing the dwelling for implementation. And at the end of the decision-making stage, that's when people commit to progressing with the retrofit works. So some of the questions that people might ask at the planning stage and the decision-making stage really centre around, can I afford to do it? What measures should I go with? How deep will I go? What grant route will I take? How long is it going to take? Is it the right time for the home to do it? How will I fund it, or how will I finance it? What are the benefits? Is it worth it for me? And who will do the works? And so there are various influences on the individual measures that people might plan. So it might be others' experiences with retrofit measures, peer recommendations. The costs are becoming even more important when householders are at the planning and retrofit decision-making stage. There might be the household dynamics and differences in opinions between what householders believe they should do. It might be that the grant scheme requires certain measures, particularly for the one-stop shop service, which requires the B2 retrofit, and that might influence the plans that householders make. It might be what's technically feasible again. It might be how much grant is available for certain measures. That might influence what people include in their plans and decisions. It might be to do with the quality of the information that's available on the benefits of each measure. Again, it might be your economic benefits, energy cost savings, property value improvements, how that differs across different packages. It could also be your social benefits to do with improvements in the indoor environment. It could be environmental benefits. And then you have factors such as the inaccessibility of providers, who they trust. Is there any regulatory constraints to the implementation of certain measures, and how would that affect their plans and decisions? And then how much disruption is it going to cause? And how available are the retrofit measures? Are there any supply issues that they might face? And these factors become even more prevalent as people progress towards the decision-making stage. Then there are various factors that might influence how householders choose contractors for the works. So they might go with local contractors. They might look at the track record of the providers. They might look again to others' experiences and peer recommendations. They can be very influential and important. And then they might look for registered SEAI providers, so that's your registered one-stop shops and your registered energy professionals. And you can find details of those on the SEAI website. They might look to use contractors that have been recommended to them by a one-stop shop. And then they might look at how attractive the different designs that different providers are offering to them. So then finally, householders progress to the implementation stage. So they have to prepare for implementation at this stage, and then implementation begins. And then householders will then experience their newly retrofitted home to end the retrofit journey. So householders might have some concerns and face some barriers even prior to the implementation of their works. So at this stage, they might find difficulty dealing with the bureaucracy of the grant process, for example, and need some support with that. They might need to find alternative accommodation for the course of the works, and that can cause some delays. They might again have competing priorities within the householder or in the household, sorry, which might impact their ability to implement the works at any particular time. Again, they might face supply delays that might delay the implementation stage of the works. And then at this stage, they might start to consider, well, we've decided on these measures, but how efficient are they actually going to be once we've implemented them? What are they going to look like in the home? What's the experience of living with these measures going to be like? Then they might also have concerns regarding the sustainability of the actual materials that are used during the retrofit. And again, they might have concerns regarding the skills and reliability and quality standard of the providers and to what quality the works are going to be carried out. And then finally, post-retrofit, there's various factors that will dictate the satisfaction and dissatisfaction of the householder. So again, you have whether or not they've received economic benefits from the works. Is there any social benefits in terms of thermal comfort improvements, indoor air quality improvements, health improvements? Did the works bring any environmental benefits? Do they see that their emissions have reduced? Again, they're going to look at high quality measures and high quality installation. This will be extremely important post retrofit. And again, they might be satisfied with the retrofit process in its entirety if they feel like they've had good communication and a strong relationship with the retrofit provider. And in particular, it's those social benefits surrounding thermal comfort improvements, life within the home, that are particularly important in ensuring satisfaction with the retrofit process. And then there are a few things that might cause some dissatisfaction with the works. So one of those is difficulty in operating new technologies and understanding how they work, particularly when you look at things like heat pumps and heating controls. And then are there any unintended consequences? So that might be energy performance gaps as a result of inappropriate use of the implemented technologies, or it could be due to worsened indoor environmental quality when you look at poorly implemented works and stuff like that. So that's just a snapshot of the householder retrofit journey, and I think Caroline might give you an in-depth look at the retrofit process with a one-stop shop. So I'll be happy to take any questions, and thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Orla. So we'll hand over to Caroline now, who's going to walk you through some top tips from the one-stop shop perspective.
Great. Thanks very much, Jamie. And thank you, Orla. So as Jamie said, what I'm trying to do, give you an overview. Orla's gone into quite a bit of detail in terms of the process and the pitfalls and so forth. So I suppose I'm going to try and share some of my knowledge, having working as a one-stop shop, engaging with homeowners, and just to try and give you some tips if you're thinking about retrofit. If your clients are thinking about retrofit, what the different options are. So I'm Caroline Ash-Brady, and I am director with the core group. We have two aspects of our business. So we're based in the lovely country, lovely County Cavan, Rolling Hills there, and that's our factory. We have two aspects of our business. One is we manufacture expanded polystyrene for use in the construction industry. Some of you may have come across us before, maybe specifying our foundation system. We do a lot of work on civil projects, but most of what we're doing is in low-rise residential and new build and low-rise residential in retrofit. Our journey began manufacturing, and as we started supplying materials into the retrofit industry, we saw an opportunity to look at the installation side of it. So now we are one of SCI's one-stop shops. We were the first registered one-stop shop in Ireland. We work on the Better Energy Community Programme. We're also a contractor on SCI's Warmer Home Scheme. And in the last couple of years, we've started taking our work into Northern Ireland, and we're approved contractor with the NICEP in Northern Ireland. So we have over 10 years experience in retrofit. Our first big journey into deep retrofit was probably 2017 with SAI's deep pilot scheme. And boy, did we learn on that journey. So we did a number of jobs in that year, and very complex, big, massive projects, some of them old buildings, some of them with extensions, and we learned a lot. So I suppose I'm going to try and share some of our learnings when you're thinking about and talking to your clients or thinking about it yourself. Look, Orla's already spoken about the different grant supports that are available, but it's really there are 3 routes. It's very simple. You're either going to qualify for the free energy upgrade, you're going to try and manage individual upgrades yourself, or you're going to be thinking about a deep retrofit, which is the route with the one-stop shop. Just about the warmer home scheme, and I always like to tell people about this because you may have family members, you might qualify for this, you might have friends and family. This is a phenomenal scheme because it does upgrade works to people's homes, and all of the work is fully funded by SAI. You will see there on the screen, and this is for people that are in receipt of typically a government support, so fuel allowance, job seekers allowance, working family payment, one parent family payments, carers allowance, and so forth. So in order to qualify for this scheme, you have to own your own home. And what SAI and the government are trying to do in this space is there is an onus on each country within the European Union to upgrade the worst performing houses in the country first. And so if you're those G's and F's, so if you qualify for the warmer home scheme, there is currently a waiting list of like 15,000 houses on that waiting list, but how government are trying to prioritize that, if your house is the worst performing on that, you will get the works done first, because when you do works to a G house, the uplift in terms of energy improvements is typically greater than when you're starting at a starting point of C. So this is a really, really great scheme. We've worked on it for a number of years, and people get massive benefit from this scheme. The individual ones, as Orla said, that's when you're just doing it's like a renovation passport. When you're home, you're doing one measure at a time. You're doing it as you can afford it, and you're managing the grant process yourself. So you're going online, you're doing your application, and you are then getting all the paperwork and all the information from the contractor that does your work after the fact and submitting that to SAI. You are waiting for the money. So you have to come up with the money first. So if you're doing external wall insulation grant, external wall, and you're getting a grant of 4,500, you pay the contractor up front and you wait for the monies then from SAI once the work is done and they sign off that your paperwork is all correct. The one-stop shop, as Orla said, is where a company such as Core comes in, end-to-end management of your project. We're in charge of making sure you get the uplift, making sure the right products go into your house, and then all the compliance afterwards. The one-stop shop, the difference is the one-stop shop waits for the grant. So if your project is €60,000 and you're getting a grant of 25,000, you pay Core 35,000 and we wait for the 25,000 from SAI. It's an interesting concept by SAI. It means it puts the onus in terms of quality on the one-stop shop, because we're never going to do anything that would risk €25,000 being left on the table. But likewise, we would have hundreds of projects going on, so the actual risk to any of the one-stop shops is much greater than any one individual property. So our commitment to the one-stop shop's commitment to quality and aftercare and supporting the client is there purely, and not purely, but it's driven by that risk to the organization. So that gives great support and gives that peace of mind to the homeowner. It also gives peace of mind to other professionals that might be working on projects with their homeowners, because every single one-stop shop has to have professional indemnity insurance, because we're specifying and we're making sure the works are done and we're signing off on works as well. I won't labor on this. Orla's already gone through the eligible measures, and for anybody afterwards that want to look at that in more details, these slides. Grant eligibility. The grant eligibility rules, I suppose there are some rules to think about when you're doing your grant, you're applying for a grant. So you cannot commence any of the works before you apply for your grant. That's really, really important. But if you're doing building works or extension works, you can start the extension. before you put in an application for a grant. So that's important. So it's the costs that are associated with the grant that cannot happen ahead of grant application date. So if you're starting your project and you're putting on an extension, don't order your windows, don't pay for your windows until your application for the grant goes in. So the grants can only be claimed on those eligible costs, which are relate to the measures that you're doing in the house. You must achieve a post BEOR uplift. And I just want to explain that in a little bit more detail in a moment. All subcontractors must be registered to SAAI. So that's not bringing in your mate Johnny down the road or Paula or whoever it is, that they're registered, and that has to be proved to SAAI. And when you apply for a single grant measure, they will ask you to choose who your contractor is. Now, it can change after the fact, but the reason that's in there is that so people fully understand that contractor must be on SAAI's list. No second-hand products can be used. You cannot have previously received a grant on the same measure. So if you did your cavity wall years ago, you can't come along and get an EWI grant afterwards, an external wall insulation grant afterwards, in most cases, unless you need to do that works in order for the house to be suitable for a heat pump. So there are little nuances around that your one-stop shop would be able to explain to you. The works must be completed within 12 months of the grant offer date. We are coming into instances with complex projects where that 12 months is an issue, working with SAAI on some ideas about principles and offers in principle on grants. But again, at the moment, it's 12 months. All of the works must comply with SAI's domestic technical standards and specifications. That is the go-to, along with SR 54. They are the rules, and all the works must comply with those in order to get your grant. And again, current building regulations obviously aren't left aside of that. All of those things are really important. There is a change coming for this. When you're working with a one-stop shop, your BEOR must be less than 12 months old when you're applying for your works grant. There's talk that they're going to loosen that. I think I'm not going to say a figure because right now I'm not 100% sure of that, but they are going to loosen that, and it's something that we push for with SAAI. So because you shouldn't be penalised for doing a BEOR this year, deciding to do the work in 2025 and then realize that you have to do a BEOR again. It just doesn't make sense. This is around the uplift. This is what I want to, I suppose, there's two things you need to achieve when you're going for a one-stop shop grant. You need to achieve a B2 and a 100 kilowatt uplift. But if you start at a C2, for example, you'll see in the table, if you start at a C2, you have to get the 100 kilowatt uplift, which means you have to get a B1 or higher. So depending on your start point, that's really important. So if you're in that C range, you're going higher than a B2 in order to also satisfy the 100 kilowatt uplift requirement. So you have two requirements. So if you are starting at a C1, you are achieving an A2 or higher. What we're finding with the customers that in our particular range, most are trying to aim for that A2 range. Something interesting about that, when you're looking at 100 kilowatt uplift, typically a heat pump will give you 70 of that 100 kilowatt uplift. And that is because of the carbon savings associated with it. It's electrification, it's there's no fossil fuels, and so you get your uplift is much easier when you are putting in a heat pump with all of the other works in your house. Of course, that HLI that Orla mentioned is critical. You can't just go along and put a heat pump in a house. The house has to be suitable to allow that heat pump to work effectively. And so that typically means that your house fabric and your air tightness has to be at a certain level. Where some houses struggle to get a HLI is around house type. It's normally associated with the floor area. Bungalows struggle to get the HLI. suspended timber floors can struggle to get the HLI easily. So there are nuances around the type of house that you live in and achieving this 100 kilowatt uplift. I suppose when you're looking at retrofit from the very start, and it's no different to anybody in their day-to-day business lives, what are we trying to achieve? What is the outcome? And Orla mentioned all of the different things that everybody's trying to achieve. Most of the time, people are trying to maximize what they're trying to achieve. But before when you're looking at what you want to achieve, what it's linked to is what is your budget and and are you willing to borrow in order to achieve that what you're looking to achieve. So what actually drives what people are looking to achieve is what they can afford. Under SAI schemes, you will see that you have the people that are that spend more than 10% of their income on heating their homes. They're in fuel poverty, and then you have those that are what SAI and government deem the able to pay. I would argue there's actually a cohort of people that don't qualify for warmer homes and are still in the unable to pay space. But the schemes, as they stand, I suppose they need further development, and I know SAI are certainly committed to that moving forward. The different types of works that one-stop shops deal with. Now, not all one-stop shops or contractors will deal with all of these different types of scenarios. Most one-stop shops are dealing with energy efficiency works only. So the moment you're doing your extension or moving an internal wall or changing the house in any major way, not all one-stop shops will look at that. So that's the first question. What type of works am I doing? Do I intend to do an extension to the existing building? Do I intend to reconfigure the inside of an existing property? Is the home derelict or vacant? And what do I need to do? So though all those types of works do qualify for the one-stop shop. In Core, we work with all those clients. It doesn't matter what you need. But the most important thing is that at the outset we understand. So you shouldn't if you're doing your home energy assessment and trying to figure out that uplift, if you're doing an extension, that uplift needs to include the extension. Because that's the final building. So we have an existing building, we're looking at the existing building plus the planned extension, and then the outcome at the end is the actual final building, because that's what your BER will be built on. Again, we have Orla has already mentioned around the home energy assessment. This is the first step. This is your roadmap. This will outline each measure and what each measure is giving you in your property. So if you do attics and EWI, this is the uplift. This will get you from a G to an F or a G to a D. And then to get to the B, you need the heat pump and so forth. What we're typically finding to get a homeowner to a B2, you will need the fabric upgraded. So the walls, the windows and the doors, the attic, perhaps the floor, depending on the starting point of the building. Looking at some air tightness measures when you're redoing those windows and doors, taping up those joints around your windows and doors. Then when you're looking at a heat pump, depending on the level of fabric upgrade, looking at ventilation. Ventilation is key. Are you going the natural route of ventilation or looking at mechanical ventilation? When you're moving into that mechanical ventilation and air tightness, you're getting closer and closer to your A. So there are different paths and different things that people can achieve. And again, some people will have different drivers. They want to be more comfortable. They just don't want fossil fuels in their properties anymore. There's lots of different things. Just around green finance, I suppose you have the SAI grants there to support you. There are green loans from banks which are lowering interest rate loans. Another thing to look out for is after the fact. So when you upgrade your home and you're achieving an A-rated home, your bank will give you a lower green mortgage interest rate. This is really interesting because if you lower your interest rate, it could be a couple of €100 a month less that you're paying. And when you look at that over the lifetime of your mortgage, that's a significant amount of money that will contribute to the overall cost of upgrading your home. SEAI are coming out with an SBCI backed loan that's coming hopefully before the end of the year, which will offer a lower interest rate. But the interesting thing about this is it's linked to the one-stop shop. So as a one-stop shop, when we do your home energy assessment, we will fill out a form for the homeowner to give to their bank. The bank will then look at that form, do some general credit checks. Obviously, they will do their normal checks. But once they approve the homeowner gets the entire amount that they're looking to borrow upfront. So it's different to a mortgage setup where there's sign-off process. The homeowner gets it all upfront, and that's their working capital to get that project going and to keep the contractor paid and keep the project moving. So that's a really interesting and a welcomed addition to the green finance space for deep retrofit. Also, the vacant and derelict home scheme, if you're in that space and you qualify for that, you can combine the vacant and derelict homes grant with SEAI's grant. That to me, for in that cohort, is a game changer. You can get 50,000 if you have a vacant home, 50,000 from your council, and up to 30,000 from SEAI. That's a huge amount of money. What we do is we specialize in helping our customers understand where they can get best bang for their buck. You can't double grant any measure. So you can't get a vacant home support for your windows and a one-stop shop support for your windows. But what you do is, well, if I get my windows with a one-stop shop, that means I can use the 50,000 that I have in my vacant and derelict home grant to much better use. I can put in the kitchen, I can put in new stairs, so it's just about making sure that homeowners maximize the most they can get in terms of government supports. So that's again, the Orla has spoken about the benefits of a one-stop shop. One of the things, I suppose, it's at the end of the project, and that overall, that professional indemnity insurance, that sign off. The one-stop shop is not walking away at the end of a project. We are tied into the quality of the workmanship on that project and everything that happens on it. There's also a huge amount of work that goes into the documentation and certification at the end. It is SEI, like any other government agency, governance is hugely important to them, and rightly so. And so the documentation and certification that the one-stop shop does and looks after on behalf of the homeowner is actually quite extensive. So obviously no grants are paid without documentation and certification. When you're doing the single grant measure, as I've mentioned, as a homeowner, you have to do that paperwork yourself. And paperwork includes, in the one-stop shop, certainly commissioning, recce certs, air tightness testing, post BER, as well as all of the certification and sign off. So it's very similar to the sign off required for new build, where you're getting declarations of quality from each of the subcontractors. They're signing off, yes, we did the work. So it is a robust system around documentation and certification that moves with the home and is there, and that really gives the extra benefit outside of the single grant measure route. There are ways, of course, one-stop shop, we work with architects, we work with engineers, so that professional we become part of the professional team for the homeowner, making sure that we maximize the grant but also ensuring that we protect the fabric and the building physics, that the retrofit works will not negatively impact the building and the existing building in any manner, shape or form moving forward. And so the using the right products and the right certified products is key there. I'm going to finish on this. I just wanted to tell you about a project that we're working on, and I suppose when you look at the Construct Innovate and everything that they've been set up to do, we're working. It's an inter-European project, and we are working with other companies and partners across Europe. There's two strands to the project. The first is to develop a local bio-based raw material supply chain in Ireland for insulation products. And then when we have done that, and we could produce a product from that, using those products to create an off-site wall and roof panels for using bio-based materials for retrofit applications. Quite the challenge. The project has started, but I suppose what I'm showing you this to see that there's so much happening in retrofit. It's very tied into the what's happening in the new build section around our move towards embodied carbon and operational carbon, bio-based products. And so it's an exciting project that's happening for us. And if anybody wants to learn more about that, we'd be certainly interested, delighted to tell you about that. And that is me, Jamie. So I will stop sharing and happy to take questions at the end, of course.
Brilliant. Thanks, Caroline. Okay, so our last of our third speakers is Dr. Paul Moran. So he's going to talk about the lessons learned from monitoring performance of homes. So over to you, Paul.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Paul Moran. I work in the University of Galway, and part of my research is looking at the sustainability of buildings, both from the perspective of the materials that we're using to construct and retrofit our buildings, and then as well as that from the operational side, so how the people occupying those buildings are actually operating them. So I'm just going to showcase today some results from a retrofit case study that we looked at now a couple of years ago now at this point. But as part of that process, we monitored the building both pre-retrofit and post-retrofit. So as part of that process, we carried out on-site surveys to collect technical characteristics of the buildings themselves, carry out thermographic surveys of the buildings, both pre and post-retrofit, to see where the heat loss areas were in the building fabric and how they improved after they were insulated. Then we measured the temperature and relative humidity of up to 5 rooms in each house, as well as measuring the electricity usage and gas usage of the buildings themselves, so we could capture how much energy was saved as part of the process and how much the indoor environmental quality improved as part of the process as well. Then as well as that, we carried out questionnaires and interviews with the people occupying the homes to capture background information on them themselves, from their demographics to kind of what their beliefs were from energy conservation point of views, their thermal comfort levels within their existing homes, and how much they kind of changed after all the works went ahead. So the case study buildings was essentially 2 different types. So it was buildings constructed in 1994, so that consisted of end terrace and mid terrace housing, and they were solid walls that had dry lining on the inside of them, and then there was a small section that had an empty cavity on the outside, located in front of the living area. So these are gas heated homes, and they had timber windows installed in them, and then as part of the retrofit works themselves, they got attic insulation, so 300mm attic insulation. The cavity walls were pumped. They each got new windows, new doors, a new gas boiler system with heating controls, and then a new hot water tank. So the aim of these works was to kind of help improve kind of the indoor conditions and the energy savings of the house themselves, because the people inside the homes said that the house was very drafty and that they struggled to retain the heat after they switched off the heating. So the hopes with these works to help improve those for the buildings themselves. So a standard floor layout kind of for your mid-terrace and end-terrace houses. So you have your living area and kitchen on your ground floor, and then your 3 bedrooms upstairs along with the bathroom. Then as well as that, there was a second part of the estate constructed in 2000. So these were partially full cavity based houses. So again, these were mid-terrace and end-terrace houses that were gas heated, and they got similar retrofit works to the previous houses with new windows, new doors. The walls got pumped with cavity insulation. 300mm attic insulation was also added, and then a new heating system as well. So again, similar complaints to the other houses in that they were very drafty. There was kind of mold around the window reveals. They tended to lose heat immediately after the houses kind of turned off the heating themselves. And then as well as that, the box room was a big complaint for these houses, because they said they were very drafty, and they felt a lot of that was coming from kind of the porch area underneath, where there was a lot of drafts getting up underneath and into the box room itself, causing the temperatures to be really low in those rooms. So here's just some pre-retrofit gas usage of the houses before the retrofit works went ahead. So as you can see kind of here from the color scheme I have here, where the red houses were high energy users going down then to the lower energy users. So even though buildings had similar technical characteristics, the influenced occupants inside those homes can have a big impact on kind of the energy usage of those buildings themselves. So whether they were high energy usage people or low energy usage people. So because everybody used their houses in different ways, as part of the retrofit works, kind of people then experienced different benefits as part of those retrofit works. So the high energy users tended to see more energy savings, and then the people kind of on the more low energy user kind of scales, they tend to see more kind of temperature improvements within their homes. So sorry, a lot of data here. I could have presented, I suppose, in a bit of a better way, but essentially the key thing to take away is that normally every house seeing increases in their temperature levels within their homes. So across every room within the home, especially the box room, the temperature levels increased due to the retrofit works themselves. So here I've just shown the 24-hour temperature profiles of the houses. On the left-hand side is pre-retrofit, and on the right-hand side is post-retrofit. So first off, with the box room. So you can see the box room on the left was very, very cold. It improved as part of the retrofit works, but still not as, it was still, although remained the coldest room in the house despite those improvements. For the other rooms inside the houses, kind of overnight, you can see the temperature drops that the rooms experience while kind of people were asleep and whatnot, from kind of 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. The temperature drop kind of decreased, showing the impact kind of insulation works had and kind of helping to retain that heat within the homes. Then the homes themselves, they were typically heated for 1 or 2 hours in the morning. Then the temperature kind of remained static before increasing them from kind of 5 p.m. onwards, when kind of people were getting home and whatnot into their homes. And as part of the retrofit works, the temperature profiles within the rooms themselves became a lot more uniform compared to what they were pre-retrofit. Now, as part of the retrofit works, the houses in 2000 got passive ventilation vents installed in them. And for these houses, they actually didn't have any passive ventilation apart from some as part of the windows. And when people kind of got these new vents in, they were kind of shocked with kind of some of the breezes that were coming in. But of course, this is needed to help kind of ventilate your house and keep the air high quality. Unfortunately, some of these people tended to block up the vents, which kind of one kept moisture within the rooms, but then it helps retain heat as well. So it's kind of it's not right. We shouldn't be doing it because we obviously need good ventilation within our homes. So that kind of needs to kind of, I think, be explained a bit more to the householders to kind of help them understand the importance of keeping their houses ventilated. Then here I've just shown some of the gas usage as part of the houses themselves. So the main takeaway from here, I suppose, is that the houses were able to heat their houses to a higher temperature using less gas as part of the retrofit works. So again, even the temperature dots here, which represents the gas usage on a monthly basis of the different homes, they're a lot more closed in compared to kind of the pre-retrofit markings here, showing that people were able to retain or use a lot less gas than to help heat their homes themselves. So overall, the houses were able to achieve 11% gas savings as part of the retrofit works, as well as houses experiencing kind of temperature increases as well. Now, the level of increases that they experience obviously depended on how they use their homes pre-retrofit. So it's important that when kind of people are getting their homes retrofitted and kind of benefits they want to see, that they kind of go in tandem, and that if you're going to want to increase the temperature levels of your home after you get retrofitted, that this is kind of going to eat into the amount of energy savings that you can see as part of the retrofit works. But it's important that these kind of studies are carried out at the same time, one, to help us, identify any issues as part of the retrofit works that can help kind of improve processes following on, and then as well just to give householders that bit of that evidence to show them that it's actually worthwhile doing these works, which it is. So happy to take any questions for that. Thanks.
I suppose a couple of things to close out with. First is just to thank again our speakers, Caroline, Orla, and Paul, for sharing that knowledge that they have and experience that they have, which is very welcomed in there. There's a lot of appetite there for information around retrofitting homes. Our next talk or set of talks as part of the webinar series is on passive house design. So that's next Tuesday from 12 to 1. we'll have Jeff Colley, founder and editor of Passive House Plus. He's going to talk all about Passive House and why we should build Passive House. Olga from Helena McCallum Architects will, they have a lot of experience of actually delivering Passive House design and tell us some lessons learned from that. Hugh Whiskery, who's the managing director of Partel, the importance of membrane ventilation and why we need them in our modern homes. And Stephen Barrett, who's the carbon lead at Irish Green Building Council, will talk about why we need to consider the whole life cycle carbon analysis in our building design. So the carbon associated with all those materials that we put in and on the products we put into our building, as well as the carbon associated with operating our buildings. So this is, this webinar today and the webinar next week is part of the Construct Innovate webinar series, Sustainability Planning and Construction. You can go onto the Engineers Ireland website and you can sign up for any of those webinars over the next number of weeks. So again, thank you to all our speakers. Thank you to you all for attending, and hopefully see most of you again back here for next Tuesday at 12 o'clock.